Replace that old spongy feeling Saginaw with the new Borgeson Street Performance quick ratio steering box. I'm Tim Johnson, and this is Shop Tool Reviews. Borgeson Universal started in 1914 making U-joints for lathes and mills in Connecticut. Now later in the 1920s, they started making U-joints for Ford. Jumped to 2001 and they bought out Mullen steering gears, and then in 2012 they bought out all the rights and equipment for Saginaw steering boxes. Now if you open the hood to most 1965 and up GM muscle cars, you're probably going to find an old Saginaw Delphi 800 power steering box, and chances are it's going to be leaking. Now Borgeson makes a brand new replacement for these old Saginaw units, dubbed the Borgeson Street Performance Quick Ratio Steering Box. Now this is a 12.7-to-1 ratio that provides a firm feedback much like today's muscle cars. The new box, while it's not a rebuild, it still fits directly in place of the old Saginaw unit. We installed this on our 71 Oldsmobile 442 project car. This is one of the simplest replacements and upgrades you can do to your muscle car. The fenders and fender wells were off our car, but the installation is nearly as easy with the fenders on. We started by setting our steering wheel to 12 o'clock, then we set out to remove our old leaky and greasy Saginaw unit. First up was to remove the power steering lines at the steering box, which can be done with a 5/8 inch and 11/16 inch flare wrench. Since we were replacing the steering linkages, we separated the pitman arm from the steering links, leaving the pitman arm on the steering box. Now, if you're leaving everything in place, you can just pull the pitman arm off of the old box using a puller. Next, we removed the two nuts from the rag joint, then used a small pry bar to slide the steering shaft back. With the power steering hoses removed and the rag joint separated, only thing holding on the unit was the 3 bolts that go through the frame. Now, we used our Milwaukee M18 impact wrench and a 5/8 inch socket to break things loose, and in a matter of seconds, we had all 3 bolts out and the old box was on the ground. Before installing the new box or installing the pitman arm on the box, we made sure that the input shaft on the new Borgeson unit was clocked in the middle. It's about 3 turns from lock to lock, so we set the shaft at about 1.5 turns in. This is not too super critical since the pitman arm can only be indexed every 90 degrees anyway. Now we applied a little grease to the splines, then slid the pitman arm on, and we used an impact to run the nut on and to seat that large lock washer. We were able to use our old pitman arm since our car was already a power steering car. Now, if you're changing over from a manual style gearbox, then you will need a pitman arm off of a power steering car or a power steering box. We reinstalled the old bolts going through the frame since they were in good shape, and then we installed the new rag joint. Now, you do have to purchase a rag joint from Borgeson if this is going on anything older than 1977, because the new box does use the newer 3/4 inch 30 spline input shaft. Now next we slid down the steering column shaft to meet the new rag joint, and this is a good time to reconfirm the clocking of your steering wheel to the new steering box as well. 2 new nuts and bolts are included from Borgeson, and that attaches the new rag joint to the steering shaft. Now the new Borgeson unit is set up to work with the new O-ring style hoses. However, they also include brass adapters that you can put in there, and you can utilize your existing flare style hoses like we did here. Now, with everything in place, next up is to pour in the power steering fluid and go for a ride. However, our project car is not quite complete yet, so we can't do that. Now, before driving, be sure you fill your power steering reservoir and then turn your steering wheel from lock to lock a couple of times without the engine running. Now, what that's going to do is that's going to push in any of that steering fluid into the Borgeson unit and purge out any air that may be in there. Once you do that, be sure to top off your reservoir tank again and you should be good to go. Now we look forward to our first test drive and we can feel that firm wheel without that sloppy play in the steering. Now the new Borgeson Street Performance Quick Ratio Steering Box can be purchased online for about $450. Now the fact that this is a simple install, that you can utilize the existing hardware and hoses as well as the added safety and performance, this makes it a very easy recommendation for all you GM muscle car gearheads out there. Now please like and subscribe to this video. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Thanks for watching and have a great day.